Hi all, and welcome to this webinar. Good to see we have so many attendees from different locations and countries. My name is Rutger de Jong. I work for Servoy as a sales manager. And for those who don't know us, in short, Servoy is a software development platform especially used to build SaaS and mobile applications. And today we will be mainly talking about reasons to embrace the Servoy platform, when is the right time, and how you could adapt the platform as a FileMaker company. This webinar is not so much meant to do a one-on-one technical comparison between FileMaker and Servoy. Rather we'd like to talk about the business reasons to go for one or the other. And therefore we also invited two customers who have a strong background in both Servoy and FileMaker, with whom we will conduct a short panel discussion hosted by my colleague Sean Devlin. We always try to make this webinar as interactive as possible. So if you have questions, please use the chat panel, which I will be monitoring during the webinar. Also this webinar will be recorded and shared afterwards. So if you want to look it back or share it with others, this is possible. Yeah, I think this is it for the housekeeping part. So let's get started. Sean, are you there?
I'm here. Thanks, Rutger. I should probably introduce myself too real quick. I help to run Servoy's North American projects, and I work closely with our customers to develop Servoy's product strategy. And in doing so, I've spent well over a decade helping our partners to transition their companies through changing market landscapes and sometimes technology disruptions. And that kind of brings me to what I'd like to discuss today, because I've spent a lot of time working with ISVs and enterprise application teams, and I've seen, very talented folks building applications which have high value, a lot of functionality, which delights their customers and really sets their businesses apart. And usually what I find is that these teams are capable of overcoming lots of challenges. But once in a long time, teams will face challenges that require more than incremental improvements to their offering. It could be really disruptive, like a market disruption, or sometimes a hard technical barrier, or a limitation to take an application or a business to the next level. And in those cases, it's not the day-to-day business. I think ISVs get in a rhythm of implementing features, adding extensions, onboarding new customers. But I think every now and then they hit a limitation where they really are faced with the choice of whether or not to go to a next level. And if you find yourself in that position today, I think that's good, because that's kind of why we created this webinar. And I could share my experiences, but I thought it was better that we invite some guest speakers who have really been on the other side of that and really have deep experience with all of the thought work that goes into these kinds of decisions, and then all of the implementation experience on the other side of that. As was said previously, we've invited two Servoy customers to join us. So first, I'd like to introduce Karel van den Berg, who is from Glowis, and they do logistics and supply chain management solutions all over the globe. So Karel, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about Clovis?
Yeah, sure. Hi guys. I started Glowis in 1999, and it was a spin-off from a manufacturing company where I created an ERP solution entirely in FileMaker. And it was pretty advanced in times when everybody still worked in character-based systems. And so people got, visitors, customers got really excited when seeing the graphical user interface and all the possibilities I've created with FileMaker. So to put that in perspective, I'm still a little bit in love with FileMaker. Fast forward 20 years later, we're a company of 55 people. We started our migration 10 years ago to Servoy, and we are focusing on more like logistics part of the business. We still support ERP, full ERP functionality, but we added warehouse management and transportation management capabilities, and we just are in the middle of our first big rollouts in 15 countries. So with this new platform, the biggest rollout ever for a multinational. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, that's exciting. Thanks for that. And also, I've invited Rutger Slager from STB, and they develop CRM applications and extensions on a core CRM. And Rutger, can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about STB?
Yes, of course I can. Yeah, we started a long time ago. I started with 2 people in 1992, building a completely custom-made solution in Filemaker already. For more reasons, it was flexible, and for me it was easy to use. And Filemaker was Mac only then that days. Then in 1999 we started building standard products using Filemaker Pro. So we call it the Office system, was, let's say, in basis was already a CRM system, and then we specialized to different target groups to be that are associates, so membership organization, let's say, charity organization, and training institutes. And then in 2007 we were growing, and then we migrated, and later on during this webinar I will also tell you the reasons. We embraced Servoy and rebuilt our software, our standard software using Servoy, and our company grew. We went from, let's say, on-premise solutions to SaaS solutions and to subscriptions. And so we were with 50 people, around 50 people until last year, 2019, and now we are part of a bigger group. It's called Edonet. Now we are called Edonet STB, and now in total with 200 people.
Wow. Wow, that's quite a transformation. Maybe sticking with you, Rutger, for a moment. When you were starting out, you said that you were building bespoke applications with just a couple people, and then you talked about your evolution from there. Maybe you could talk a bit about what was the technology at the time, and also maybe the market at the time that made Filemaker the right choice for you, and how did you leverage that into growing and starting and growing your company?
Yes, I discovered Filemaker as a coincidence during my work study, during my study. And I had more reasons. I fell in love with Filemaker because it was very flexible. I was, as not too technical guy, able to build great solutions already then. And then we discovered there is demand for it. So that's how it started. And the main reason was for small and mid-sized companies to be flexible, and that it really fits their needs. And yeah, so that's how it started. From the start, we made it modular. At least we tried to provide different functionality per customer. And that was a bit of a challenge, of course, to keep that up to date. And later on, we also embraced other web technology like PHP, and then you had so-called Lasso.
Right.
And so we were able to combine Filemaker in early days with web technology. And the flexibility was the main reason we chose Filemaker then.
Right, right. And Karel, when you started Clovis, I think more than 20 years ago, right? Did you start on Filemaker, or was there something before Filemaker?
In 92, where I started as a student in the company of my father. I bought, or my father, his money, we bought a Macintosh, in a second-hand Macintosh, because it was too expensive when you bought it from the shop. And it was a pretty coincidence that Filemaker, I think 1.2 or 1.5 was installed there. And the guy from the guys who sold me the Macintosh, he explained me FileMaker in 30 minutes, and that was the start of a journey where I could embrace, let's say, working in the manufacturing plant of my father, and doing business, and in the meantime building a platform between 92 and 99. It was all custom made. Afterwards, I always loved it, and this spaghetti code. It still runs 3 places,
Wow.
but it was never intended to be commercialized. So, but for me, the reason to stick with FileMaker was that I could focus on the business, and that it was so agile, and even in these times, it's so agile to add a field, to change a layout or a report.
Right.
And so when I started Glowis as a spin-off, the first couple of years I did this with this existing spaghetti FileMaker ERP application. And then we started a complete rewrite. And that was in a time where we said FileMaker isn't right for us anymore. And we were in FileMaker 6. And then came from heaven FileMaker 7. And it was like, oh my God, what a present. So at that time, and glad we did it, it was with FileMaker 7 that for the first time we started building professionally and very dynamic a framework with a lot of possibilities also in FileMaker. And it was only 5 years later or 4 years later that we needed something more like an integration with XML files, and it should be web-based. And we thought, okay, we're going to make a small web shop, and let's take Servoy, because Servoy was also then, or already then, marketed as a follow-up product for a company, a software company that grows and that needs to scale. And so we choose Servoy for first smaller projects, but it grew out of hand, and it became our successor to FileMaker. And then we grow. Starting from then, we started growing and having this technology. It was commercially a breakthrough. Working on an SQL database where other integrations were possible, working with web services, etc. So it was a commercial breakthrough, even when the product was still only 10% at what it is today.
Well, it sounds like both of you started more with the custom implementation. Karel for his own manufacturing facility, and Rutger for bespoke applications, and then deciding to build a standardized offering and leveraging FileMaker's agility and productivity to do that.
Yes.
And Karel, you mentioned a bit that you started to I guess outgrow or look for, you had needs that weren't satisfied by FileMaker. What were the business drivers that were that were causing you to search for new solutions? And what were you looking for?
Yeah, first of all, performance and stability. Even though you could say FileMaker is stable, etc., but the overall scalability and performance issues, even with the newest version of FileMaker, when you have a very broad application with a lot of functionalities, and you have this graph of your database, of your tables and its relations, etc. It's a nightmare for bigger applications, and so we grew into real troublesome performance. And then we had the issue that working with professional techniques, JavaScript, the way how forms are built or were built, it's very static. And even with instant web publishing, there were so many limitations. So we were never be able to become a SaaS company, looking towards finding a good solution, a niche market. And I say, we want to be appreciated as a SaaS company. We want to be valuated as a SaaS company. And we want to prove to our investors. At that time, we were looking outwards to possible investors. It was it was not feasible with getting professional investors on board with a FileMaker platform, and
Right.
we succeeded in that with Servoy.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like that it was not only was the application growing too large in scope, and you ran into performance issues, but also the company itself with the number of customers that you were adding, and then also more of a strategic choice that you were looking for a platform which I guess you could be seen more as a SaaS company and less of a services or
maybe
kind
one
of company.
addition, Sean, one addition to that, which I forgot to mention, we grew from a couple of developers, which is fine, with 2 or 3 or 4 developers in one FileMaker server solution and building and expanding it. But once you get to 10 developers or 15 developers, and you need version management, and you need strict control, you need to debug things. It wasn't feasible with FileMaker, although I'm still in love with FileMaker, but not with 15 developers or even 10 developers or 8 developers. This cycle, this entire life cycle, product life cycle management, this continuous integration with version management, GitHub, it's so big a world which you miss when you're still in FileMaker.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So kind of outgrowing in many directions. It sounds like. Yeah. Maybe if I could switch over to Rutger as well on the same topic. Rutger, was STB also trying to transition from like bespoke application and services kind of company to more of a SaaS company? And did you have the same kind of limitations as Carol, or
comparable like Carol? Customers ask more and more for world standard then, SQL, also for strategic choice, for future investor was also a reason. But we had more reasons. We wanted to have a new standardization. We missed team development and multi-user development possibilities. Really need for a so-called DTAP, so to have a good acceptance and production stage, what now you can call it DevOps, to have a short iterations for Git, for instance. More ready for the web. Of course, FileMaker is now also more and more ready for web, but we needed already a long time ago, and performance was also a reason for us. And a business driver also was that we really wanted to go to software as a service. So the subscription model is very important, so to be able to do that. And nowadays, for instance, more than 70% of our turnover is completely covered by the subscription fees. And also multi-tenant, so also to be able multi-tenant, to be able to do hosting on to share server capacity between customers instead of the need for a server per customer, unless you have a bundled solution like FileMaker offers. Yes, so that was very important. I think very comparable then with the research from Glowis.
And I think STB does a lot of integration as well. Did you have integration needs that?
Yes, it was also very important. We solved that more or less than in the early days with Lasso, the web integration, but it was not good enough. We really needed standardized API. So already early after 2007, I think 2010 or so, we already used the REST API, at least as soon as it was available, a long time ago already. And that was very, very important, because you saw more and more that customers also want to connect their websites or apps to the platform. So that was really also a very important need to have better connectivity then. Correct.
Right. Okay. Maybe moving on, I'm curious for both of you, when you were making this decision, I can imagine that it was kind of a critical point in the business. So maybe if I could stick with you, Rutger, when you were making the choice for searching for a new platform, what was your decision process at the time? I know in hindsight you can see where you are today and where you were, but at the time, if you can remember back, what were some of your criteria? What technologies did you evaluate? And then ultimately you chose for Servoy. What was it about Servoy that?
We were lucky there. I think we did it on time because it was a big step. We were smaller then, and we need a lot of production capacity, developer capacity to rebuild our solution. We were lucky that the customers were not asking for it. That sounds crazy, but my feeling was when they really ask for new technology, you are too late because it needs time. Of course, we saw more and more the need for world standards. So we saw on the horizon that it was needed. So that was so we did it in time. Let's say we also thought, okay, are we purely a developer company or are we an implementation company? So we also looked at Microsoft Dynamics, for instance, SAP Business One. So we looked at the whole area to be open for new standards. So, and we did a proof of concept together with Servoy. We had a lot of discussions with Servoy. The need for multi-user development was then also new for Servoy, for instance. So we did a lot of proof of concept work together with Servoy. What was for us was very important to we are close to Servoy. Let's say FileMaker is more a black box. At least the FileMaker engineers. Of course, it's better and better over time, but Servoy is more open, also to interact with R&D, for instance. That was also important for us for the decision process. Yeah, so we tried to play safe, and then we built a solution, and we first were happy to find new customers who used the Servoy solution. So we won time for migration, let's say. So in parallel, we still supported the FileMaker solutions, and so we had time enough in the end to migrate.
Right. Okay. Do you still have any applications that you run in FileMaker?
Yes, you can say our specials. We have some customers who are very special. At least let's say they cannot use the standard solution. They are custom made from scratch, and that's we still do in FileMaker. Even the newest version of FileMaker we use for completely custom made solution.
So still a valuable tool for STP.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe Carol, can you talk a bit about when you made your decision? Was it difficult? What else did you consider doing? Did you consider not doing anything?
We needed to do something, and I think the most important decision or element that made us choose for Servoy was our existing developers. We knew we had a very big functionality wide product, and we were only, let's say at that time, 5-6 developers. So starting in let's say Java from scratch or .NET, it was no option. So at that time, the environments like 4Dimension, like Omnis, etc., they would have been a choice, but they were already in a decline. They were not making it. I think they still exist, 4D and Omnis, but really as a more like a rapid application development environment, specifically focused on ERP-like transaction-based solutions. I think Servoy was the logical path, because also from a lot of development principles in Servoy are so similar to what is used in FileMaker, like going through found sets of records, etc. So keeping you away from the technicality of a database, knowing that you work on an SQL database, but don't have to bother. So it was made. It's like that it was made for FileMaker developers to make the next step. So I think our existing developers and the fact that we didn't have a huge budget to spend and to hire 5 new developers to do something entirely new, it drove us to Servoy. But I still think FileMaker has its place. I must admit that for building a very fast mockup, even once in a year, still I get to FileMaker and I build a mockup to show and to think about new functionality, and I still do that in FileMaker. And even in our back office in Glowis, runs partly in FileMaker, in a solution that we made years ago.
Right.
Our own software in Servoy is not suited for this kind of, let's say, billing and project registration, etc. It still runs in FileMaker, so it typically has its place when you have to build something for a small number of customers, or make it very tailor-made, very fast, build something very fast, but where you don't have the need to scale it.
Yeah, yeah. If I could stay with you for just a minute, Karel, because you were talking about looking at Java, and your team was still small at that time. I think Rutger said the same thing, but you felt you had to do something. Could you talk a bit about, especially I'm interested to hear how did your team adapt? Did you go and then have to hire new developers? Did any of them feel resistant to the change? Was there any risks there in that part?
No, it was Servoy was very much appreciated and adapted by the people. So we started one developer. At that time, we hired an external developer coming from a .NET environment. So he first started experimenting with it with a fresh mindset, and then rapidly followed by the first developer I ever hired in 2000, who's still our principal developer, Pascal. So those two guys, one with a FileMaker background and the other with a .NET background, there was no hurdle, no barrier from a history, from a psychology thing, like there was no barrier. What our first approach was that, okay, we'll build a light solution for this one use case, and we don't want to copy everything we have in the existing Glowis products. But for some reason, and I regret that, for some reason, we let that plan slip out of our hands. And very quickly, I think 1 year in the process, there was an existing FileMaker customer in Belgium and Holland, but they also had a subsidiary in the UK and in France. And they said, okay, we want to grow with Glowis, but not with the FileMaker program. And so we decided, okay, let's go ahead and let's start building the full ERP again. And I think that was kind of a mistake, that it was so ambitious and I think, first steps, I don't know what the scale of the solution is of the participants, but if you have only a small team, take the first steps, not too big, and use the help of Servoy to let's say to accelerate it. So the ambition was growing a little bit too rapidly, and so that was hard, going from 1-2 developers and then whoop, and in no time, and then the ambition of building a build cycle, etc. So keep your ambition somewhere under control, because it feels like a new world is opening up, but the devil is in the details. So take it step by step. It's a new world that's opening.
Right. Yeah, we call that avoiding the big bang, where you want to do everything at once. It can be a risk. Maybe over to you, Rutger, and the same question. Can you talk a bit about the process that STB went through, and did you go for a big bang, or did you go module by module, or did you start with net new applications? We see that often too, to do a parallel net new stuff with slowly moving legacy stuff. What was your approach?
Yeah, we started with 2 new experienced Servoy developers. We hired them. So we had the good thing about it, that there was already experience in the company from the start, and also Servoy helped us for project management, and a senior developer from Servoy. It was very good for a start. the first goal was not to rebuild the whole solution. It was a goal, but not to have it from the start, let's say. So first we had a so-called minimal viable product. And so keep it small. And also later on, that was the core of the new product. We kept it modular, so we were able to grow the product over time, also in combination with feedback from a customer. We did a complete rebuild, so no migration, only migrating of data. So that we didn't want to focus on too much on legacy, but we want to keep it recognizable. The look and feel, so the customer recognized the look and feel, more modern, but they recognize it. So we reused all the knowledge we have and all the experience, and that was an ideal situation to rebuild, since products were already mature, because we were already providing a Filemaker solution for more than 10 years. So the experience, what customers need, was already there. And our Servoy, our Filemaker developers more and more wanted to step over to the Servoy team. And in the end, now almost all our FileMaker developers develop now in already a long time in Servoy. So it was not difficult for them to switch. That's what we noticed. So that was good, but also healthy, also for the ambitions of the people themselves, as we noticed. And the steps we took, we started with for the CRM product, we started with the desktop, the smart client, and then. And for our healthcare platform, we started with the web client, the HTML4, let's say, and later on, of course, we switched. Are still working on that. We switched to for the NG, the HTML5.
Right. So would you say that the initial quantum leap you had to make out of FileMaker? I know STB we've been working with you for a long time. But that initial leap that you had to make, you've made several other leaps since then. Were those comparable in size and disruption, or were those waves a bit smaller and more manageable?
This step, it was not too big. It was not a big bang, let's say. And I think the main reason was that we started small, but also there was no really urgency. So the customers were happy, and we were able to keep them happy. And sounds crazy, but we were also able to earn money in the same time with the FileMaker products. So we were able to invest in growing the team, which were focusing on the new products. So it went very smooth, let's say. Yes,
that's good. Yeah,
and we had the luck that we find new customers in the Servoy product, and then later on, after a year or so, we were able to persuade our FileMaker customers to look also in the Servoy product.
That sounds pretty rosy. Were there any negative aspects or drawbacks or things that were real setbacks in the process?
Not that I remember. Maybe I blocked it away. I'm not sure. No, not that I remember. Of course, but that was already 2007. We didn't think the web client was mature enough, but that's already a long time ago. Right. So then we decided to move on for the smart client, but that's already a long time ago. And then so that was the only thing I think we had to decide after a while not to continue with that hybrid solution. But later on, when the Servoy was had more new versions, etc., it was now it was very good for us. So that was what I remember. No.
Nice. Okay. Well, moving on a bit then. My experience is with long-term partnerships with software vendors and enterprise application teams, and I find that it's never over. So I'm curious to hear from both of you about where do you stand today compared to where you were back when you started this transformation, and also what's in the pipeline for you. And I thought it would be cool that while you guys discuss that, I'll show a few images of your application suite and where it is today. And I guess we can start with Karel. Can you tell us a bit about where Clovis is today, and also some of the interesting things you guys are doing right now for the future?
Sure. So the scale of the solution and working for from small companies with a couple of users, and now being in a rollout that will have 900 users. We are able to, at this time, to work with Amazon. So some clients still run on-prem, but that's an on-prem data center or their choice of data center. So we're not tied to one hosting approach, but now being on Amazon, the scalability is huge. So supporting now customers from 2 to, let's say, now 900 or 1,000 concurrent users in multi-company, intercompany transactions that go that are very advanced. I noticed some of the attendees asking about batch processing on the server side. So the setup we now have is we have a load balancer with which sends the traffic from users that connect based on some rules to the right application server. We can even offload some batch processors on a separate application server. We integrate with high-end messaging systems that are very performing on the base of messages, API calls, etc. So we're in another ball game, in another league, playing in European terms, the British Premier League, and we feel proud about the stack. It comes with some challenges, but because you start with FileMaker and first you see it looks a lot to FileMaker, so you start, but still you need to learn to become a real SaaS company and to scale out. You need to know about new technologies, about AWS, about SQL. A developer without any knowledge of SQL, although we're not writing SQL codes specifically, but you need to monitor things and stuff. You need to migrate databases. So it still needs extra know-how on top of FileMaker. But our company, we can say we have become a product company from a consulting company that made customizations and that had an enormous challenge on version control, and although we promised it times and times again that we could upgrade customers, it was always a big challenge and it caused always a lot of discussions. And now we can say we're already building 10 years on the platform now, and we still keep up with the latest versions of Servoy. Getting versions very good controlled in GitHub, etc., takes an effort as well. So a lot of challenges, but we learn so much, and our people are, so we have two types of developers, and one are still the FileMaker minded developers who focus on functionality and who do a great job. And the others, they are more technical and focus on newest things like web components and technical stuff like APIs, etc. So
right.
we're another company now.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that you said that you are proud of where you're at too, because that makes us feel good as well.
Yeah.
I'd like to also show a bit of STB, and Rutger, can you talk a bit about where you are today, what the landscape looks like, and what you're looking at for coming in the pipeline?
Yeah, like Glowis, totally different. In the past, we were more on-premise. We've delivered more on-premise solution or hosted per customer. We relatively had a lot of work per new customer, so it was difficult to grow. It was time consuming in the past to do deployment relatively. And now we can say we are really a SaaS company. So it's very easy to do onboarding of new customers. It takes seconds. Of course, then we have implementation, but that's going more and more easy because it's cloud, multi-tenant, scalable. Our dot on the wall is to go further on that, to have self-onboarding, so that customers, that it can grow also for more smaller companies, and to also have more tooling to learn the solution themselves without the need for external implementation. Yeah, nowadays we have thousands of users. In the past, when there was a new customer, we had work, and now when there's a new customer, technically it's just a few mouse clicks, and So that was very important for us as a company. We were not there where we now. Yeah, and also strategically, and now we're in a bigger group. Yeah, this kind of information, this kind of let's say to be really a SaaS company with good returning revenue was also important, of course, for the new partner. Now we are part of the Edonet group, so
Right.
totally different than where we started. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Thanks for that. Well, I'd like to thank you both for sharing your experience. And like I said at the beginning, for me, it's a lot more compelling to hear directly from you than to talk about Servoy, because ultimately the folks that are joining this webinar are of course interested to hear about Servoy, but they want to know in the context of where they stand today. But I think it's fair to explain a little bit about who we are and what we do. There's a myth that Servoy was started by 4 guys in a windmill. I've been with the company for a very long time, and it sounds plausible to me. I don't know. But what I do know is that it was founded in 2001 in Holland, but we've grown to be an international platform vendor. And we really, I think, we come from different backgrounds at the same time. I think one of the founders was actually a FileMaker developer, and another was like an enterprise Java ERP developer. And if you can imagine, the combination of those two is kind of where we stand today, and always have been, sitting at the intersection of being able to deliver applications out of the box quickly, being able to innovate quickly, having good UX in mind, at the same time dealing with all of the things that an enterprise class application is going to need, all of the non-functional requirements that allow companies to scale and grow and integrate. And I think that from our product, we really focus on a couple of key pillars. One of which is still rad, and that's always been our strategy, is to allow developers to go quickly, because as you heard from the guys, the challenge of modernizing or migrating a legacy application is huge, and you'll never get there if you don't have a productive tool set. But that's not the end goal. The end goal is also to move from sort of legacy technology to become a modern SaaS company, and that does require a whole new set of tools or set of considerations. We call those non-functional requirements, and they can be things having to do with scalability or integrations or multi-language support, localization support, security, all of these things being embedded in the platform. The other thing that you heard, I think, from both guys, is the change in the lifecycle support. So you go from a few developers that are building custom or bespoke applications to managing applications as a product, and the needs of customers that expect the product to be updated regularly with maintenance and new features. So that requires teams being able to collaborate together in an agile way, with source control, with automated testing, with automated build, and moving to deployments in a sort of seamless way, and in a way that can be iterated. And again, that's been our focus for a long time. Finally, with Servoy, we're based on industry standards, although we kind of still feel like 4GL to a developer, and we have our own flavor for sure. Nothing we do is proprietary protocols or has a proprietary database or anything. So you can connect to any data source, web services, relational databases, etc. We support industry standards to allow our customers to go fast when they need to, but when they need to be flexible, to kind of look behind the curtain and put together real solutions. And what I would also like to say is that ISVs and enterprise application teams are really our focus and have been our focus from the beginning. We really understand, I think, the challenges that these kinds of companies face. We ourselves are an ISV. We understand the pressure that comes from the market and also the challenges that come from a technology landscape which is always changing. And in the beginning, Servoy, back in the early 2000s, was offering ISVs a way to have a SaaS offering. The SaaS wasn't a word back then. I think ASP was the term, to run over the internet. And we had a lightweight client. We called it the smart client. I think Rutger had mentioned it. It's like a thin client that requires no installation. Many of our customers still run that, and it's still supported. But we saw then shortly after that people were really demanding a web presence. They felt that they needed to have a browser offering to face down competition. Or maybe they had IT limitations and they needed to start to deploy browsers versus desktop clients. And we had very early, I think back in 2006, a way to deliver Servoy applications in the web, cross-browser, cross-platform, and it actually ran from the same code base and the same set of tools as the smart client, the desktop client. And so for our customers that needed to make that jump, we made that transition as seamless as possible. They didn't have to learn any new technologies or any new protocols. We also saw as a market driver that UX was becoming even more critical, as were mobile applications. And about 5-6 years ago, we started our NG Client initiative, which is based on HTML5. And once again, provided a migration path for our customers to move their applications onto the next generation technology. And so they're able to deliver mobile applications, native mobile applications, web applications, and even desktop applications that are still based on web technology, but can integrate with hardware and local file systems, et cetera, all from the same code base and all from the same set of tooling and developer experience that we've always delivered. So I'm proud to say that a lot of our customers are really our technology partners, and we've had them in our portfolio and had relationships with them for a very long time, and we continue to be successful together, and that's really our focus. So you've heard the experiences from the guys, and you've heard a bit about Servoy. So maybe if you find that compelling, you're wondering how you can get started. My sales department required me to put the slide. No, I'm only kidding, but we'd like to offer a promotional special to help you get started. And the way we typically work is we'll look at your application, your business, talk about where you're at in your journey. For those of you that are worried about specific technical challenges, we really recommend a proof of concept, which is where we actually dig in together and make sure that it's going to work before it's kind of your due diligence before starting any big engagement. And those that already have a commercial target in mind, we can help kind of evaluate that, scope it, make sure that it's within your bounds. And we understand that these types of decisions aren't easy, and that they have to be taken the right way and executed the right way. And we're happy that we offer we call it Assurance program, obviously the application assurance, to help guide the process and make sure that that commercial success is reached, and not to make it about technology. So I'm going to do a Zoom poll here, and I've never done that. And just take a poll from you guys to see your interest. Although now I'm having trouble to find it. I knew this would backfire on me. There it is. It's right in front of me. Okay, I'm going to launch this now. I'm just going to ask you to please respond if you're interested in any of the choices in the poll. And I'll leave that up for a moment. And in the meantime, I would really like to thank our speakers. These guys are busy guys, as you can hear. They have a lot going on. And I really appreciate it, Karel and Rutger, that you took the time to join us. And I also really hope that those of you guys in the audience, I want to thank you as well. And I hope that that some of this was insightful for you, and that what they've learned along the way is applicable to your situation. So let us know. And thanks, Rutger, and thanks, Karel. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure. And people
Okay.
also can always contact me for further question or experiences, and so I'm free for that.
Yeah, me too. You're
Yeah.
happy to help.
Appreciate it, guys. Really appreciate it. Okay. Thank you both, and everyone, thanks for attending. Again, we will post a recording of this, and we'll share it with all the attendees, so that if there's any part of it that you want to rewatch or listen to, we make that available, and appreciate everyone's participation. Have a good day.